and Jim Webster. That's everybody. Um, so moving down the agenda, the only items we have are the board appointments that have been on the agenda every meeting. Does anyone have any comments or issues with that? Need to discuss? No. And so moving on to operations, there are 3 resolutions. The first is bids for paper goods, liners, chemical products. This is more, this is not a firm commitment. It is just kind of a pricing agreement, if I recall correctly. So we're being given a 2-year lock-in on prices on these items that are used by our staff and by the cleaning companies that come in. So it's not, we're not bound to it in any way. We can walk away from it at any time. Is there any comments or questions about that? Okay. The resolution awarding data backup recovery and intelligence systems agreement. This is a data recovery system. Mr. Gettner gave us a summary of it. I don't know. Mr. Schultz had asked prior to the meeting beginning whether or not there were competitive bids, and I can't answer that question. It seemed like this was something that was selected internally by IT. It was technical in nature. They had assessed that this was the best system. It's what he referred to as next generation. It's Mr. Gettner's opinion that it's only a matter of time because before we get caught with some type of a malware issue, and this would create a redundancy in our backup system, where part of it, or the part of the backup, is kept off-site. They're looking at NIU as the location, so that if something happens, we can, within a short amount of time, recover our system. Any discussion? Mr. Schultz?
Thank you. I would be interested prior to the vote in finding out if there was a competitive bid on it, or get feedback from Ann or somebody in terms of that. And then, do you remember the amount?
I'm sorry, I don't. Off the top of my head, it was a substantial investment, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head.
We could have that as well, and then just the was it budgeted? Those were the 3.
It was budgeted. Yeah, it was budgeted. And I might be able to find the agenda on my phone here while we're talking about the last item to maybe get that information for you. Was there any other further discussion on that item? Okay. Moving on, the last item is bonding required for the various electeds in county government. It's required by statute. The amounts of the bonds are set by statute. And this is just for certain offices, not all of the offices. But it was also discussed in that part of that meeting, that most likely, or that we should have a bond also for the coroner's office. So there's a possibility of us recovering a portion of that money should, depending on how that case ends up. So that was the gist of that. Is there any discussion or questions? Mr. Schultz?
You said that we have a bond on the coroner, or we might want to get a bond.
No, we have, it's required by law that we have one, I guess, for all of these offices, so we do have one. And it was the opinion that I asked if we could recover it, and State's Attorney Height Ross said that it was premature to discuss that pending the outcome of the case. But I'm surmising that its purpose is to recover for malfeasance or misuse of funds. So we should be able to get something back depending on what happens.
We might be in a position, for what it's worth, that the additional expense of increased bond premiums would be a factor to consider in terms of the amount of loss, the amount of the claim.
That if we make a claim that our premiums would go up because of it? Right, okay.
Experience generally, but I don't know about bonds specifically.
All right, yeah, that's a good point. It's just, that'll be something down the line
Gotcha.
for us to
Thank you.
consider. Any other comments or questions about those items? Okay, is there any other matters that anyone would like to discuss? I have a couple comments I'd like to make if there's nothing else from anybody else. No, so I just, Mr. Webster got the caucus rules for me. And those rules say that we are to have our elections of officers within 14 days of the general election. So I spoke with Mr. McDonald this morning and he said he'll schedule that for next Monday. So anyone who's interested in serving as an officer of the caucus should, talk to someone about nominating them. I've talked to most of the caucus about my interest in running for caucus chair. I'm not sure if anyone else is also interested. We'll need a vice chair and we'll need a secretary. Mr. Zintak, unfortunately, you can't vote on that. It's the incoming board members will vote. The outgoing board members do not vote. Any comments on that or questions about that?
Well, if no one else has anything to say, I'm full support there if you decide you want the job. So I'm good with that.
Okay. And for anyone who didn't know, Mr. McDonald is not interested in the job anymore.
Okay. Yeah. So I've done it before. You go ahead and do it. I appreciate you.
What's that mean?
That means I appreciate you stepping up to the plate to do it.
Okay.
Because depending on the board, on the caucus members you have, it could be difficult or not. I mean, Republicans were notorious for being so damn conservative to the point where we were so independent, and that's why we have that phrase that is herding cats.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my deal. I took my turn doing it, and so Keith took his turn to do it. So God bless you for taking on that chore. I appreciate it. If you're the guy that prevails, I know you're well organized and so forth, and you're energetic about things that we do. And so, Paul, you've got my full support. I'll say that publicly right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Webster.
You would have my support too if I was still there.
Well, thank you. Mr. Billich?
And what Mr. Webster said as well.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, so hopefully that'll just go smooth. I don't know. I've had a chance to meet with Mr. Shirelli, and that went well. I think it's going to be a good transition, an easy transition, I should say. So I'm optimistic, and I encourage all of you to also meet with him. Mr. Butita?
Thanks. It just dawned on me, and you probably have already thought of this, but I believe we'll have 2 new caucus members. Is that correct?
Yes.
Kevin McCarthy and Mr. Lindmark. So we should just make sure that they're invited to next Monday's caucus also then.
Yes, we'll make sure that we do that.
Good.
Okay. Are there any other matters to discuss in caucus tonight? Mr. Booker?
Thank you, Chairman. And it's still okay, it's still legal and still kosher and everything to have them, even though they're not sworn in, that they can still vote, correct? I just want to be
It- Yeah, it's actually spelled out in our bylaws that
Great.
they become members of the caucus before swearing in.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Zintak?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for everything. I know if we've been here a short time, but I had enjoyed myself and working with you guys as much as we've done. Thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
for filling in. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it
Thanks,
was
Mike.
good getting to meet you. Thank you for serving. Okay,
That's it. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
all right. I have a motion to adjourn, second by everyone. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Have a
Aye.
good evening.